Hi, welcome to the Morelli Entrepreneur Training for Women Blogging 101 Bootcamp. I am so glad you're here. For the next 5 days, we're going to do a deep dive into blogging using WordPress. We're going to make WordPress your new BFF. We're going to talk about why, we're going to talk about when, we're going to talk about how. I'm going to give you a solid foundation for blogging in general and WordPress specifically. Now, disclaimer, I will not be able to teach you everything in 5 days, but you will learn a lot. So who am I? I am Trina Johnson. I am the CEO and founder of Morelli Entrepreneur Training for Women. I am a corporate marketing executive turned attorney turned business consultant. At Morelli, we bring women who want to learn, connect, grow, and prosper together for training, coaching, networking, events, support, and information. You're going to learn more about Morelli as the week goes on if you're not currently a member. Now, my first endeavor after closing my law practice was to become a blog ghostwriter. At one point, I was writing up to 40 blogs a week for a variety of businesses. I had clients that had a doggy daycare, a dentist, a used car lot. I had one client who was a horse race handicapper. His blog was interesting. So I learned a lot about blogs and I learned a lot about WordPress during that period of time. Now, I firmly believe that everyone, especially if they're in business, needs their own piece of internet real estate. And I believe the best use of the internet is blogging. So what is a blog? A blog is short for weblogs. It is a personal web page. Should be updated frequently, and it is chronological. It's a journal. It goes from day 1, day 2, day 3, and so you read it kind of backwards. And the great use of a blog is to link to sites of interest to the author. So why would anyone read a blog? Well, blogs are intended to be unfiltered individual voices, right? When you write a blog, you become a celebrity. You become something that attracts people to you and your voice and your opinions. Blogs, you really become the expert when you write a blog. So you should be guiding people to other resources of interest. And the fact of the matter is that the web is too big to find everything for yourself. So if you find a blogger or two who is researching and is working in the areas that you are interested in, it just makes it so much easier. So why would you write a blog? Well, because it's the place for you to express your expertise and your opinions. You can raise your profile, expand your sphere of influence, you generate discussion, you attract those with like interest. Blogs are easy to manage and update than a regular website, and we'll get into that a lot this week. And the fact of the matter is, Google and Yahoo and Bing, all the search engines love fresh content. They love when there's something that's brand new because it's something that people haven't read before. So, all things being equal, a WordPress blog is going to rank higher in search engine results over any static website. It's the way it's built, and you want to, if you are interested in getting your voice, your opinions, maybe your products and services out in front of a wider audience, you really want to consider a blog. And so a lot of people go, I don't know, I don't want to start a blog, I don't know what I would write about. Well, write for an audience of one, write for yourself, write about what interests you, and write in your own voice. That's going to attract other people who think like you, right? Publish often, don't over edit. Blogs do not have to be perfect. Yes, they should be grammatically correct, but you'll see there's a lot of blogs out there that they're not perfect, and that's okay, because that is the person's personality. They're being authentic, they're being real and genuine. That's what people want to read. And then just put out links and go to other sites and opinions that interest you, because you're going to find that other people are interested in you, and if you're interested in something, they're going to be interested in that too. So how do you get started with a blog? Well, blogging is actually very, very easy because it's pretty simple and it's very template-driven formats. So the very first decision you've got to make is what's going to be your platform. Are you going to use a free service? There's a lot of free services out there. Or are you going to do what's called a hosted domain? And I personally encourage everyone to do a hosted domain because you have so much more control over what it is. When you use a free service, yeah, it's great that it's free, but you don't own the content. You are actually putting your content out on someone else's site, and they own the content. For instance, the biggest one out there that's free is Blogger. That is Blogspot. It'll be your site at blogspot.com if you're on there. That is owned by Google, and it is the original free blog site. It has limited functionality compared to some of the other platforms, but it is super easy to set up and update. And it automatically comes with Google AdSense. So if you're on the free blogspot.com, you are going to have ads running on your blog. But if anyone clicks on those ads, you get money. Now, my very first blog ever was on Blogger. And I think I did make money. I think I made, $12, $15, every quarter or so of AdSense. You could live on it, but you can make money that way. Another one is Tumblr. Tumblr is part social media site, part blog, but it's definitely set up as a blog platform. It is the originator of the hashtag. Tumblr is where hashtags came from. I know Twitter then adopted it, but actually hashtag started on Tumblr. Tumblr is very easy to use. It is really designed for heavy use of visuals. It is really designed for like photographers or, any blog that is really heavy on visuals. Tumblr's a good choice. It has a community built in. So if you are writing a blog on Tumblr, everyone else who signs into Tumblr gets a feed of other Tumblr blogs. So and that's where it's partly social media. Tumblr, and I still have a Tumblr site, and a lot of my Morelli blog posts also get posted on Tumblr, and we'll talk about that later in the week when we talk about promotion. But Tumblr is a really good option, and it is free. Then WordPress.com also has a free platform. Now your site would be your site at WordPress.com. You wouldn't own the domain. Now it is a WordPress product, so it's a little bit more programmer mentality, which we'll be talking about this week. It has more functionality and options than Blogger, because you can put in plugins and widgets and those things that we'll talk about later in the week, but it is pretty limited, and it does rank well in Google. And before I go on, just let me say, even though it would be your site at WordPress.com, you can buy a domain and point it to this so that it is your, and that's true of Blogger, not necessarily Tumblr or WordPress. You actually can have your own domain name and have it point to these free sites. So it's a little bit more complicated, but you can certainly do it. Now, before I go into paid platforms, there are other products out there like Weebly or Wix. I think there's a couple other ones. I think web.com kind of thing, where they are actually designed as website platforms, but you can use them to create a blog. Now, some people ask, what's the difference between a website and a blog? Well, the website is typically fairly static. You put it out there, you maybe have a couple updates here and there, but it's static information. A blog is really intended to be updated and to have continuous content on it. Now, there are certain pages on a blog, obviously, if you have an About Me page or whatever, that are pretty static. That's considered the website part, but the blog itself, the personal log, is updated frequently, and that's really what the difference is. So there are some paid platforms out there. One that used to be very, very popular, especially in like scientific mechanics, people in those kinds of industries, scientific mentality, used to use TypePad, and it's still out there. They host, there's no self-hosting option, and your site will be your site at typepad.com. Limited functionality, but it is really easy to customize. And if you run across a typepad blog, you'll notice it because it almost, they've improved the look of them quite a bit, but they are you can just tell that they're very scientific. They're very straightforward. But they're a good platform. Pretty cheap. I think it's like $9 a month. And then there's WordPress.org. This is the one that I highly recommend everyone get to know. WordPress, it is free software, but it has to be hosted on a purchased domain name. So you purchase your domain and provide the hosting. So your domain is yourdomainname.com or .biz or .net or whatever your domain name is. And you have to have a host for it. You can self-host, but that's kind of complicated. Or there are hosting services, and we're going to be talking about that here in the next little bit. But this is the way that I recommend most people go if they're really serious about creating a blog. Now, WordPress.org, WordPress, is limited really only by your imagination and your programming skills. It is in a code called PHP and or CSS. Well, there's a whole lot of other different programming languages that can be used on WordPress. But honestly, you can make your WordPress blog do just about anything you want it to do with a good programmer. Now, WordPress, why it's so highly recommended and why probably 80% of the blogs out there in the world are put on WordPress is because it was designed with Google in mind. All the Google search engines or algorithms are designed into WordPress. And when WordPress updates their software, and you should update your software pretty frequently and all of your widgets and all of your plugins, which we'll be talking about, keep those things updated. They actually work with Google. They analyze Google and they'll make those changes so that your site is always working within the Google search algorithms so that your site is going to get found. All right, so okay, well, we are going to now go and look for some domain names and talk about hosting, and I'll see you on the next video.